Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast on a Victory Monday, energized by Celsius. I am John Ledyard from PewterReport.com, along with Scott Reynolds, also of PewterReport.com, here on a special Monday because we are, Scott, officially 9 days from the 2021 NFL Draft and a chance for the Bucs to get even better than the Super Bowl champions that they already are. Seems a little bit like a cheat code to give the Bucs the draft this year. Get the Bucs out of the draft. I mean, I'm sure there's teams that would like that, right?
Yeah, and it's a Victory Monday too, John. It's a Victory Monday every Monday until the Bucs lose, which won't be until September, maybe October.
If
maybe they go undefeated. You know, it happened before in Tom Brady's regular season. Was it back in 2007 or something like that? 17.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's been a while. But yes, we had a great time at the Arians Family Foundation last night. Saw Jason.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Jason Licht was there. Bruce Arians was there. John Spytek, Mike Beal, the director of college scouting, was there. Rob McCartney, pro personnel. Everybody was there. We talked a lot of draft. And unfortunately, everything I was told was sworn to secrecy. So I can't reveal any of the details until after the draft.
So are you going to leak little nuggets out though, like on this show, maybe in our articles with the players that we put as Bucs Best Bets? Can people kind of assume there's some inside intel in there?
There is, but it didn't come from last night. The closer you get to the draft, those lips, they get sealed tight. So we do have some intel, but it has come from weeks and months ago, not necessarily from the last 24 hours. So
right.
And
here's some of that.
And a lot of times the late breaking news that you hear, not just from Tampa Bay, but from around the league, it's disinformation. It's people putting stuff out there, trying to get players to fall and slide. And so this next 2 weeks here, this week and the days leading up to the draft, it's misinformation time around the league.
Oh, yeah. And it's part of the fun is weeding through it all and trying to figure out what's legitimate and what isn't. It's always part of the challenge for sure. I will say this. On this show today, we're going to talk about quarterbacks for this class. I know there's two different groups of people, I've realized, Scott. People on one side of the fence are like, Bucs aren't taking a quarterback. Why are you guys talking about quarterbacks? Blah, blah, blah.
Yes, they are taking a quarterback.
Here we go. Okay.
Whether you want one or not, John Ledyard, they're taking one.
That's right. Then there's the other side that's like, let's take one. What if we took one at 32? What does that look like? You know what I mean? And we don't think that's going to happen. The truth is somewhere in the middle, as it often is with these things. We're going to talk about that on the show. We'll also let you know what's the latest with Blaine Gabbert. If you read the PR roundtable on PewterReport.com on Sunday, you saw that we pretty much as a staff want Blaine Gabbert back as a backup, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. He is not re-signed. He is not signed anywhere yet. All eyes turn to Blaine Gabbert. We'll talk about him, give an update on him on today's show as well.
And we want to start promoting this. We'll talk about it later in the show, but Scotty Miller will be our special guest. That's right. Miller time, Bucs wide receiver and NFC championship game hero. Scotty Miller will be on Wednesday's podcast, which will be live from the Mill in South Tampa. And we're going to be having an exclusive partner event. And it'll be a later show from 7 to 8 p.m. on Wednesday night. So 7 to 8 p.m., we'll have Scotty Miller from the Buccaneers Super Bowl team joining us live at the Mill.
Yeah, it's going to be a great event, a great time leading up to another great week with the NFL Draft around the corner. So lots of great content coming your way, and it's all brought to you by our friends over at Celsius. I got mine, Scott. Celsius. Power those active lives every day. I got the Fuji apple pear sparkling. Oh, you got?
Look at that. Yeah. First time.
Great show. Let's go. Is that the first time?
It's the first time we've had the same beverage. If we had one more guest that had the same beverage, it'd be a jackpot. So
that's true.
But you know what? Pewter Report fans out there,
what, healthy energy accelerates metabolism.
It's always a jackpot with Celsius. Okay, whether it's Fuji apple pear, whether it's the Heat series, blueberry pomegranate. That's a favorite of John and I. I like the orange. I like the creamsicle. Boy, if you haven't tried that, you're really in for a treat. But all of the flavors can be found by visiting Celsius.com. If you want to find out where you can grab a can and check it out to see what flavor hits your palate, then go to Celsius.com, click on the store locator, then type in your address and all of the locations with health and fitness stores, the big stores like the Walmarts and the Targets, the grocery stores, the convenience stores. They'll all pop up and you can grab one. And then when you know which one you like, go to pewterreport.com. As you're checking out your Bucs news, click on those Celsius banners. They'll take you to Amazon where you can save a bunch of money and get them shipped to you in bulk. And that's how you save. So make sure that you are checking out our good friends at Celsius. It's a tremendous beverage. And as John said, no sugar, no preservatives. That means plenty of energy and no crash.
Yep. Hoping for this Celsius does the trick today, Scott. I'm also hoping for continued better internet access over here. I appreciate everybody who's been bearing with us as the update.
It's not
on
your
Spectrum.
Fault.
It's not. And that's the frustrating part. If it was,
it's not user error by any means.
It's not exactly right. We have a brand new modem, brand new router, all of it. Upload speeds have been great the whole time. The issue is with Spectrum and their connection in this new plan, this new neighborhood that I live in now, where there's a lot of building going on. They are sending out some technicians. They're sending out some maintenance people. They're going to look underground at the wires and the connections. They think there's maybe some things loose there. So it's a whole big event. It's going to be a neighborhood event pretty soon, Scott. But because I'm one of the only people in the neighborhood live streaming,
you're leading the charge for change.
I'm leading the charge for change. Yes, exactly right. So I am literally and figuratively a groundbreaker as they go to look at these wires underneath the ground. So
I'm surprised. I'm surprised we haven't had fans that, upon hearing this news, say, "Get your ass back to Pennsylvania, John."
I thought about it myself. With all these
won a Super Bowl. Okay, go back north. At least until the Wi-Fi can be figured out.
I know. Who would have thought it would have been better in the mountains of PA? But it'll get fixed. Spectrum will get things figured out. We believe in them. They have been great over the phone for sure. No question about that. So hopefully today's show goes off without a hitch, because we've got to talk about Brady's update, which he gave last night at the gala that you were at, on his knee and his knee surgery for this offseason, and the fact that he thinks he's making the progress that he should be making. Not quite ready to go today, but he said if the Bucs have a mini camp in June, he thinks he's going to be good to go, Scott. That's pretty good, because the Bucs don't have another quarterback on their roster, Scott. What's going on with Blaine Gabbert?
That's right. Blaine Gabbert right now he's taking in all those comments. Remember when Jason Licht was on our podcast right after the Super Bowl and was professing his love for Blaine Gabbert, how he throws such a beautiful pass. He just stands and watches him and admires the strong arm and all of that.
Look at his hair.
Yeah, look at his hair. Look at his flowing locks. I mean, listen, Blaine probably watches the Pewter Report podcast, and why wouldn't he? So he's telling his agent, hey, these guys really love me. Bruce is saying that I'm exactly what he's looking for. I know the offense. I've been around for 3 years now in his system, from Arizona to a couple years in Tampa now. And he probably wants to get paid like a backup. And you look around the league, and some of these backups, like the Chase Daniels of the world, right? I mean, they're making $4 to $5 million a year. And I'm not Blaine Gabbert's agent. I'm not telling you or him or anybody how much Blaine is worth. But what I'm guessing is, what I'm hearing is that Blaine would like to get paid a lot more than the just over $1 million he made last year, especially if the team looks at him as a possible successor to Brady. And that's exactly what Jason Licht said. Now, I don't think they're ready to anoint him or I don't think Brady's ready to get ready to pass the baton or anything. Mm-hmm. I think there'd be a competition. And I think they're going to draft a quarterback, and we'll talk about that in a minute, to throw into the mix. But when you look at the fact that right now it's Tom Brady is the only quarterback on the roster, we've talked about all of the needs and the future players, future starters, like they're going to draft an interior offensive lineman, John. We know that probably early. Why? Alex Kappa, Aaron Stinney, Ryan Jensen, all going to be free agents. Jason Pierre-Paul, last year of his contract, he's going to be a free agent. He's coming off of back-to-back off seasons with knee surgery. He's 31, will be 32 in January. Jordan Whitehead is in the last year of his contract. Ronald Jones, Giovanni Bernard, Leonard Fournette at the end of their, they've got 1 year left in their contract. So there's a lot of future needs to address,
Mm-hmm.
but the more immediate one might be quarterback. I think Blaine comes back, but they're going to need a number 3 arm. And I think with Ryan Griffin, John, being 30 years of age, having hardly zero experience in the league in terms of actually playing in games outside of the preseason, I think they want a younger, cheaper option at number 3 that has more upside, that has a higher ceiling, that they can at least say is a developmental guy. I don't think there's any more developing with Ryan Griffin. I love the guy, but he is, I think, a number 3 quarterback in the league.
He's 32 now, too. I mean, right?
He's over 30. So they're looking. I mean, he and Blaine Gabbert are the same age, and Gabbert has a ton of more experience than Griffin, and better physical tools. So I think they're looking for a younger quarterback. They're not going to automatically draft one, and I think if they don't after the draft, they circle back around and they can always re-sign Griffin for one more year, then figure out the quarterback position going forward next year. But there are some intriguing names in this year's draft class, John.
Yep.
I've written about them in the latest SR's Fab 5. We've got the Bucs Best Bets and our quarterback preview up today.
Yeah, and Mark wrote about about 12 quarterbacks deep in this class and kind of detailed their games a little bit. And then you wrote, obviously, as you do every year, the Bucs Best Bets at the quarterback position. So if people haven't checked that out, go over to pewterreport.com. You can check out our positional preview, our breakdown of the Bucs roster right now at the quarterback position, and Scott's Bucs Best Bets at the quarterback position for this upcoming draft. We do a Bucs Best Bet for rounds 1 through 3 and rounds 4 through 7. So an early and a late option for the Bucs at quarterback. We will be doing this for all position groups, by the way. So tomorrow, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends after that. I got your boy has the offensive line coming up on Thursday. I know y'all didn't want to watch the big hog molly, so I watched them all for the fans. I wrote up their assessments. I'm almost done with the tackles now. I've noted which ones I think are Bucs fits and that you guys should take, if you're going to watch one, check out this guy's tape and be kind of aware of him when the draft comes up. And I'll write about those guys in depth for you because we know the Bucs are almost certainly taking offensive line at 1 or 2 points in the draft, maybe. But for the quarterback position, today,
but it's necessary, John.
It's vital. You don't want Brady going into what could be the last year of his contract with any question marks up front. So take care of that group, get it ready to go, and then when you bring back Capper or Jensen, whatever.
Listen, you can have Patrick Mahomes, arguably the best quarterback in the present day modern NFL, right? But it's no good if he's running for his life and having to throw in the run and have incompletions and drops galore, and then getting sacked 3 times. And that's what happened in the Super Bowl, and that's a big reason why the Chiefs lost and the Bucs won, because the Bucs had the better offensive line, not just the defensive line, but the better offensive line. Because Brady didn't really get. I think he got sacked 1 time in the game, and otherwise the protection was great. They opened up holes for Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, and you need an offensive line that can withstand some injuries too. The Bucs were fortunate last year; they only really lost Alex Kappa, and that wasn't up until the playoff game against Washington. And Donovan Smith missed a game.
When Marpet missed a couple games, it was ugly against the Saints. Joe Haig, it was a struggle. Yeah, it's important.
But then they put A.Q. Shipley in at center for the Panthers game. You had Ryan Jensen out there at left guard powering Rojo's 98-yard touchdown run, right? So it's important to have quality depth, and I think that's going to definitely be a position of need and early on this year as interior offensive line.
I agree. So what point in this draft did it, so let's clear this up right away before we even talk about when they'll draft a quarterback. Scott, you are, I don't know. I want to put words in your mouth. I don't want to say 100%, but what percentage certainty do you have that the Bucs are going to draft a quarterback in this class?
Well, I think given the fact that they only have 1 quarterback on the roster right now, and just for the reason, like I said, I think they would prefer a younger arm that has more potential and cheaper than Ryan Griffin. I think it's better than 50%.
That they'll draft one at some point. Okay, so better than 50. Okay, yeah. I thought you were going to go higher percentage.
No, and the reason why I'm tempering that at just better than 50 is because there's really only about 4 quarterbacks I can see them, taking in this year's draft. Only 4.
Yes, right.
And they're not going to take one at 32. So that leaves essentially 6 rounds, and they'll have 6 picks because they've got an extra pick in the 7th round. So they've got some spots to take quarterbacks, but the problem is once 2 of those guys are gone, right, then you only have 2 left, and then it gets down to, do we want to take this guy in the 4th round or do we want to take a quarterback? Because we have this positional player rated as a third rounder, and we really like him, and we think that he can be a future starter. Whereas we're drafting a quarterback of the future, and he's got to be the number 3 to start. Then he's got to be the number 2. Then maybe he can develop into the number 1.
Right.
But if there's a positional player that you think can be a future starter in the 4th round, then you have to really weigh it. And then I don't think they're beholden to taking a quarterback this year, but I wouldn't be shocked if they did.
Yeah, it's on their radar for sure. They've looked at these guys. They've talked to a lot of them. The players were necessarily referring to, assuming the top 5 quarterbacks obviously are off the board by the time the Bucs pick in this draft. Kyle Trask from Florida, Kellen Mond from Texas A&M, Davis Mills from Stanford, and the 4th guy that you're maybe referring to, Scott, am I guessing that is it Jamie Newman or is it Felipe Franks late in the draft?
It would be Felipe Franks.
Okay.
And that might scare some people, especially some Florida fans out there. That
scares me, and I'm really in Florida.
But the thing is, when you look at Felipe Franks, and we'll start at the bottom and kind of work our way up, right? The interesting thing about him is he had a rocky start at Florida in 2017, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions as a freshman. Gators, didn't make a bowl that year, 54% completion percentage. Then he had a better 2018. They won 10 games. They beat Michigan in the bowl game. I'm not going to say it was because of Franks, but it certainly wasn't in spite of Franks either. 58% completion percentage. So you saw some growth there, almost 2,500 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So much improved decision making there. And then there's the athleticism that you have to factor in too. In 2018, he rushed for 350 yards, which he's not a Marcus Mariota type, right, where he did a ton of running at Oregon. But Franks has got some speed. He's a big guy, just under 6'7", 230-some pounds, but runs a 4.59, and he scored 7 rushing touchdowns. Then had a really good start to his 2019 season before fracturing his ankle, completed 76% of his passes in 4 games with 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, and then lost the job to Kyle Trask. And then when he was able to fully recover, he went ahead and transferred to Arkansas, where, interestingly enough, he became a team captain right away as a senior and had a nice completion percentage, 68.5%. A lot of RPO, so a lot of really quick, easy, simple reads in the Arkansas offense. But 17 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Again, that's a quality ratio. And again, it's the physical tools that are somewhat intriguing. And when we're talking about Felipe Franks, John, we're not necessarily talking about a 4th-round pick here. We're talking about maybe a 6th-round pick at the quarterback position.
Yeah,
a guy that can come in and really kind of physically reminds me of a little bit of a taller Blaine Gabbert. And I'm not saying that like to excite Buccaneer fans, because I'm not the biggest Blaine Gabbert believer. And I'm not a big believer in Felipe Franks. I'm just trying to connect some dots as a journalist here. If they like what Blaine Gabbert brings to the table, strong arm, good size, pocket presence. Blaine Gabbert ran a 4.61 coming out of Missouri. Here you've got a guy in Felipe Franks that is kind of like that, doesn't have the draft pedigree. Blaine was a 1st rounder, but has some similar style and physical skills that maybe could be developed in time.
Right. I mean, I'd be the first to tell you, and I wrote an article about it. I'm not taking a quarterback if I'm the Bucs this year in the draft. Just not taking one. I don't think that it's worth it. You could get a better player probably at some point in the draft. I don't love this class in general, but I think if you look at this quarterback class and you say, okay, where are the potential guys coming from? You could take a late flyer on Franks, and like somebody said, QB3 maybe, like you're okay with that. I just, those kind of picks just tend to be wastes of picks, especially that late in the draft. I mean, Franks is going to be a 6th-round pick at best,
right?
More than likely a 7th or undrafted free agent even. And like, I just don't know what that, I could maybe get a special teamer there for 2 or 3 years. I just don't know if I'm going to get anything worthwhile, even if Franks has to play. Obviously I know you're not making this point. I'm just saying, this is my position on the Cole take a quarterback late.
Yeah, and you know what, John? I agree with you. I agree with you this year.
But we've got to connect the dots. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, what will the Bucs do, and whether we like it or not. And that's what the Bucs Best Bets are. It's not saying we want this quarterback or we even think it should happen. We're saying this is what we think will happen. If the Bucs take a quarterback on day 3,
it's going to be
Franks would be.
Felipe Franks. That's how we're connecting the dots.
That's exactly right. So Jamie Newman's on the board, Ian Book, Sam Ellinger, but Book and Ellinger, we rolled out pretty quickly, I think, on our conversations.
Just don't have the size.
Exactly right. It's just the limitations. Bruce talked about upside, right? You at least want guys with some upside. That late in the draft, if you're taking a flyer, at least go with a guy with some arm strength and movement ability.
And size too, John. That's a big thing for Bruce Arians. He is a pocket passer type of guy. You go back to Pittsburgh, John. I mean, who are the quarterbacks there, right? You're looking at Ben Roethlisberger, looking at Byron Leftwich. I saw Byron last night. He's every bit of 6'5", and Ryan Griffin 6'4", Blaine Gabbert 6'4", Tom Brady 6'5". So he likes the bigger quarterbacks to have that pocket presence. So that's just one of those things. When you're 6 foot, Ian Book, I mean, you're crossed off right there in Tampa. I'm not saying, and you can make the case for the Kyler Murrays, the Russell Wilsons, the Drew Breeses, all you want. That's fine. But Bruce Arians is the head coach here. And he has a certain type of quarterback he likes.
You're forgetting, Scott, Bruce, that Brady was a 6th round pick. So it is not a waste. Good point.
Ultimate outlier. The ultimate outlier.
Of course. Just simply draft the next Tom Brady. And
just find him, Jason.
Simply make Felipe Franks the next Tom Brady. No, early in the draft. Okay, this is where the conversation got interesting for us. Well, you and I went back on this for a while because there are 3 names kind of that are on our radar early in the draft. So not in round 1, probably almost certainly, but round 2, round 3, obviously Kyle Trask, Kellen Mond, and Davis Mills are the 3 names. So you and I went back and forth. Are any of these guys going to be available on day 3? That was our first thought. We feel pretty good that Kyle Trask seems to have the most pliability in terms of some people think he's going to go round 2. Some people think he'll be available on day 3. Yeah. You guys heard Dane Brugler on our show a couple weeks ago was telling me he thinks Kyle Trask has a way better chance of being there round 4 than he does at going any point in the first round. He was completely out on the idea of him going in the first round. Peter King wrote this morning, I believe it was Peter King. Sorry if I'm misquoting him, but I believe he wrote that Kyle Trask could go anywhere from the first round to the 4th round. So he thinks the range is even larger. I asked a couple other experts over the past few days trying to get an idea, get a gauge, people who hear more things than I do, especially about the quarterbacks. Who's going to be the next quarterback off the board after the first 5? Kyle Trask, Kellen Mond, Davis Mills. I heard Kyle Trask as an answer from one. I most thought Davis Mills, but there aren't necessarily, that's not a lock for Davis Mills. Most thought that, but some thought Davis Mills could be the 3rd one off the board. There's some concerns out there with Davis Mills. We'll just say that. And so we'll see what his projection, where he ends up going. There's going to be teams that are all over the place with all 3 of these guys. Every analyst that I talked to admitted this is not an easy one to call, and that all teams are all over the board with these 3 guys.
And John, let me ask you a couple questions.
Yes.
Is Trey Lance let's say the 9th best player in this draft?
No. I don't think so.
Is Mac Jones the 3rd best player in this draft?
No.
Okay. So my point is here, and I might even ask you, is Zach Wilson the 2nd best? And you might say, maybe, whatever. Okay.
No,
but my point is this. They're all quarterbacks. They're all going to get overdrafted because that's what happens at the quarterback position. And that's the first round. But that type of thinking is everyone's still trying to find a quarterback. Whether it's for the immediate starter or for a team like Tampa who looks and says, well, we might need a future starter, right?
Right.
I mean, gosh, look what the Packers did last year. They spent a 1st-round pick. They have Aaron Rodgers, who's the MVP of the league, and they spent a 1st-round pick on Jordan Love. So
remember Christian Hackenberg, 2nd round Jets?
I know.
I mean, he was useless as a quarterback, and there he goes. And
quarterbacks get overdrafted. So I'm agreeing with you, John. I think that whether it's Kellen Mond, Kyle Trask, Davis Mills, I wouldn't be surprised if any of these guys last until the early stages of the 4th round, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're all gone by the end of the 2nd, only because there's only so many decent quarterbacks in this year's draft class, and that's always a position in demand. It's always a position that tends to get overdrafted.
Right. I mean, Dane told us, he said he thinks Kellen Mond could be a 2nd round pick, definitely a 3rd. So he feels, I think most people I talk to feel confident that Kellen Mond will go on day 2. He could be the 3rd guy drafted out of those 3 too. Some people think Trask is going to go 2nd round. Some people think he's going to go 4th round. There's a lot of variance on where people see Trask right now.
John
Mond, I think people think is going to be a day 2 guy. Mills on field, most people are intrigued by day 2. There's some injury stuff. He only has 11 starts. How's that all going to pan itself out? That's where the questions are with Mills. I think that'll have. So I think he goes round 2, probably the way that we've heard about it now. Round 2, maybe early round 3. The struggle for us, Scott, was one of these quarterbacks is going to go before the 64th pick in the draft. If that's the case, which one is most likely to be off the board. So the Bucs aren't even considering that guy at 64. Then it becomes a two-man battle. That's what we had to figure out. And it was kind of difficult based on even trying to poll people to get answers. There is no consensus on how this is going to come down to. Yeah. You eventually went with Kyle Trask as the fit for the Bucs as the early Bucs best bet at quarterback.
Yeah, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, when you look at Kyle Trask, he is not going to be for everybody because the trend in this league right now is to find the guys with mobility. And for that reason, I think Kellen Mond, who is a lot more mobile than Kyle Trask, could go ahead of him just for that reason. Even if you like Kyle Trask better as a pocket passer or as a pure passer, Kellen Mond has that mobility, that versatility that makes him a little bit more of a complete player, not necessarily quarterback, but player. And so I think that maybe 15 years ago, Kyle Trask probably has a higher draft status. 15 years ago, he probably wouldn't have thrown for 43 touchdowns this year, the way the college football and the NFL have gone with so much passing. But that's what he did. He threw for 43 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, the most touchdowns this year in the FBS, and set a new Florida record. And 68.9% completion percentage, finished 4th in the Heisman, 4,283 yards. And I heard the word around one Buccaneer place is that he kind of reminds people of Brad Johnson 2.0. And that is meant to be a positive because you're still operating in a pocket passer system. And we know that the Bull took the Bucs to the Super Bowl. Didn't do it by himself, right? I mean, Brad Johnson by himself, I think he only went to 2 Pro Bowls in his career, but he was really a point guard. Keyshawn Johnson, Joe Jaravicius, Keenan McCardell, Mike Allstott, and Michael Pittman out of the backfield. Ken Dilger, Ricky Dudley at tight end, right? So he had a plethora of weapons, and Kyle Trask, kind of the same way at Florida, right? You got Van Jefferson, Kyle Pitts, Kadarius Toney, Trevon Grimes, a lot of weapons. But he was that trigger man that got everybody the ball. He was the distributor, the point guard. And I think that's what Tampa Bay, listen, as great as Tom Brady is, a lot of those weapons did a lot of the work too, and get the ball in the hands to the playmakers in Tampa Bay and look out. And so I think that's kind of the appeal there is that he's that pocket passer that could fit in. He's played battle tested in the SEC with the DBs that they have at LSU and Auburn and Alabama. So I think that he would probably be there when the Bucs want to pick a quarterback, which I think may be the 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I was going to ask you. Okay. I hear what you're saying. The way you're describing Kyle Trask. Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl with the Bucs. It was a long time ago. In 2021, where are you drafting Brad Johnson? You know what I mean? Like, you're not drafting Brad Johnson before the 3rd round, right? I mean, like, you have to, so is Kyle Trask then gonna? What you're saying is Kyle Trask to the Bucs. Bucs best bet for the early quarterback.
Probably selection. 3rd round. Which
3rd round.
Which, when you think about it, I mean, the 3rd round in 2021 for the Buccaneers is
tricky.
Far different than it usually is. Usually, it's like, oh, okay, we're 10 picks into the 3rd round and the Bucs are on the clock. No, this is at the end of the 3rd round. So it's that end of 3rd round, kind of early 4th round. Again, keep in mind 2 things, Bucs fans, when it comes to the draft. Number one, there are not 32 first rounders that have first round grades, right? There's about 15 to maybe 20, 22 that do. At 32, you're drafting a player that essentially has a 2nd round grade. That holds true in the 3rd round too. In the 3rd round at the 32nd pick in the 3rd round, you're essentially drafting a 4th round player. That's just how it is. Number 2, there are pools of players that teams like, not necessarily rounds, but just like pools within certain places within the draft, and so they're going to have to compare. Well, do we want to take a quarterback like maybe a Kyle Trask at the end of the 3rd round, or do we want to take a positional player? And then how many of these guys do we like that we think are going to be there by the time we're on the clock next?
Right. It was the way of thinking about it that you just described finally convinced me on Trask, because I'm with you. I think he's the least likely guy to get selected in the 2nd round out of the 3 quarterbacks.
I agree.
Unless, like I said, Mills is going to be all over the place, but some team's going to like him, I think, and take him in the 2nd round. Mond could go sometime in the third round, but I think it's going to be before the Bucs pick.
I agree.
I think Trask is the one. Now, I'm not saying it could surprise me. I think he's the one most likely to be there for the Bucs in the third round, and I don't think they're going to take a quarterback in the second round. I mean, Mills and Mond could be off the board by the time 64.
I think they will. I think Mond will certainly be gone by the time the Bucs pick in the third round. I think Mills might be too.
And now the one that intrigues me the most is Mond. I've already said I'm out on a quarterback. I don't want to take any of them. I'm just saying the one that intrigues me the most is Mond because I think about what Arian said about upside, and it had a ton of opportunity in college. And I get that there's some irony to saying that the guy I think in this class that has the most dropbacks or of any quarterback in this class, I think in Mond,
Texas A&M's all-time leading passer.
Right. Like to say that he has upside is, I know, laughable, but I just think his biggest issue is consistency. If you took Mond's best stuff and best Senior Bowl, best throws and regular, best throws in big games, all of it, like he can be good for parts of all these games. He just can't do it consistently. And that ultimately is what separates, quarterbacks that are just kind of around and quarterbacks who are great. And I don't think Mond will ever get there. I think he's got a better chance of getting there than Trask or Mills. Mills has some good points too, but to me, the issue with Mills when I watched him, the dude is just crazy reckless with the football. I mean, I got some Jameis vibes.
Yeah.
I got some Jameis vibes, Scott. Like he can make tough throws, vertical throws. That's why I thought, man, he might be interesting for the Bucs. We haven't heard that buzz necessarily, but I really do think Mills has some traits that they look for. Plus, he definitely will risk it. And he doesn't always get the biscuit, though.
And the thing is, John, only 11 career starts for Davis Mills. So, I mean, that's a bit of an unknown. I mean, that's not even really starting a full college season in a regular non-COVID year. I mean, you're looking at 12 games. A bowl game is 13. To make it to a championship game before the bowl game in your conference, you're playing 14 games. But so that's a scary proposition there. But John, it's all of this stuff is just. It's gambling. It's just, that's what it is. That's right. And if you want to gamble,
there's no better place to do it.
There's no better place to do it than MyBookie. Watching any sport is a hell of a lot more exciting when you got a stake in the game. But regardless of why you play, you need a platform that makes it easy. At mybookie.ag, they make it easy. Whether you're looking to bet NBA, MLB, or other major events like this weekend's UFC 261. MyBookie is the best place to bet. And though the odds can change, if you bet on Masvidal right now to win the fight, you'll triple your money. That's right. $100 wager on Masvidal would net you $300 in return. If you're going to bet, there's only one place to do it. It's at MyBookie. Sign up right now with the promo code PEWTER to get your first deposit matched up to $1,000. That's promo code PEWTER to get the free deposit bonus and start your day off with a win. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.
Good stuff. And a good question here from Claude. Claude says, why are we focusing on Trask when Bruce Arians' own son said on a talk show that Trask does not have the skills that his father is looking for? I did hear, by the way, that this was said by Jake Arians. I'm not sure. I don't have the full quote, so I don't want to completely quote him or anything, but I did hear that was said. And actually that was my thought too. And that's why I was so about Trask. Like to me, it's upside, right? Bruce Arians talking about upside. Trask has the least upside. I mean, to me, like physically, athletically, he's completely tapped out. He very much is what he is. He's accurate to a degree. He throws nice touch passes down the field. He's not mobile. He's not going to create. Right. He does not have a lot of zip on the football. But here's the thing people need to think about. Jason Light's drafting a quarterback. He's not drafting a quarterback for Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians' quarterback is Tom Brady. Now, obviously, Bruce Arians' job will be to help whatever quarterback is in. But if they're drafting a quarterback, we don't know that Bruce Arians is ever going to coach that quarterback as a starter. Someone else may someday. Again, we doubt it because we don't think that quarterback will ever necessarily become the starter, the ideal starter anyway. But he's not drafting a quarterback for Bruce Arians. So while Jake and Bruce are probably going to have their opinions, and Bruce will, I'm sure, vocalize those opinions to Jason to an extent, he really kind of does, I think, let Jason do his thing. But also, I don't think it's necessarily in mind for those two to be married because we don't know whether Bruce Arians will be the coach. When Brady retires, Bruce Arians very well may join him at that point in time, and it would be a new coach.
That's a great point, John. I mean, Bruce Arians signed a 5-year contract, right? He's getting ready to enter year 3, and Tom Brady only has this year, next year under contract. I could definitely see Bruce and Brady going out together.
Yes.
And that would mean that Bruce would be, turning the ship over to somebody else 4 years into his fifth, contract, especially if they win another Super Bowl. I think Bruce Arians would be very satisfied, whether it's winning a Super Bowl this year or next year, to have 2 rings as a head coach on his way out the door. And that's a good point. And I don't think there would be any animosity because, again, the player that Jason would be drafting at quarterback would not necessarily be the one who would be seeing the field even while Bruce was the head coach, because if he prefers Blaine Gabbert as the backup, that's fine. Then Blaine will be number 2, and this guy, whoever it may be, will be number 3, at least for the next 2 years.
Right. Now, you've seen all 3 of these guys, Scott, and I've kind of given my thoughts on Kellen Mond, but I am curious, out of what you've seen from these guys, outside of just what we think will happen or what we think we're trying to read between the tea leaves with the Bucs, just your opinion on these 3 guys. Like, is there a guy that intrigues you out of these 3? I mean, I know I've said I'd pass on all of them, but Mond is the most intriguing to me. Is there a guy that you feel like intrigues you the most out of these 3?
Well, I look for competitiveness and see, again, I believe in analytics. I believe in looking at the numbers. I also believe in things that cannot be measured, right? Things that don't show up on a stat sheet, and they're not numbers. You can't quantify them. Grit, determination, leadership, competitiveness, those are things that are hard to quantify. You can't look at the stat sheet and come up with those. You have to look at the film and see how the player reacts. A couple things about Kellen Mond, right? I like the fact that every single year his completion percentage went up. You talk about numbers. That's what you look for. You look for growth, not just from the freshman to sophomore year, but from the freshman to senior year, right? And he stayed 4 years at Texas A&M, became the all-time leading passer, and his completion percentage went from 51.5% as a freshman to 57.3 to 61.6 to 63.3. And the touchdowns to interception ratio, that's another big one too, because that's usually an indicator for decision making, right? That should improve. 8 touchdowns, 6 picks as a freshman. That's fine. Most freshmen, that's what you get. The next year we saw the quantum leap to 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's really good. The next year, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Okay, that's on par with what happened as a sophomore. But then the senior year, only in 10 games, but 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Right, that's a hell of a ratio. And then you throw into the fact that this kid goes to the Senior Bowl, and by all consideration, was probably the best one there. Was the Senior Bowl MVP, and that's difficult to come in, learn a new offense. Try to build a rapport with new wide receivers on the fly with 3 days of practice, and go out there in the game and be a gamer. And that's what he was. Yeah. And the thing I like about Trask is kind of the same way. He's a gamer. He goes out there and competes, just about throw for throw with Mac Jones in that SEC championship game. Alabama came out on top of Florida, but 408 passing yards and 3 touchdowns against the Alabama defense. No interceptions. That was really good. Now, he ended on a horrible note. 3 interceptions, including a pick 6 against Oklahoma. He saved his worst game for his last one, unfortunately. But you look at Trask. He had 6 touchdowns to open the season against Mississippi, 6 touchdowns against Arkansas. Those are lesser competition for sure. But he's got that kind of gamer quality, and I think that Mond has that too. I like the competitiveness on those big stages, whether it's the Senior Bowl or the SEC championship game. And I think those guys have delivered.
Yeah, it is. It's a very interesting group because of the upside of, we say upside again with Mond. I don't know if it's there or not. I just think it's there. That's kind of where I've considered it at this point. Mills, I do think there's something there. I wonder what the ceiling is for a guy who's not really a creator. He doesn't throw in the move. He doesn't get out of structure. He doesn't really play like the athlete that he tested as. Right. That's not really his style. When he got out of the pocket, actually, I thought things dipped dramatically for him. He was not nearly as good when he got out of structure.
In my opinion, he's the least excitable for me. I would say Mond, then Trask, then Mills for me. And the other thing too is we are transitioning to this game where, I mean, the defensive players, John, they just get bigger and faster, right? And they get on top of quarterbacks so fast now. And the offensive line play, John, without these OTAs and these 2 days in training camp, offensive linemen just aren't as good coming out of college as they used to be. It takes time for them to develop. The Tristan Wirfs are the outliers. They're the exceptions, not the rule. And so I'm a big believer now that moving forward, you probably are inclined to get a more mobile quarterback. I think that's the appeal a little bit to Blaine Gabbert, who's got some wheels. And you look at Mond, 22 rushing touchdowns, right? I mean, he had 3 touchdowns as a freshman, 7 as a sophomore, 8 as a junior, 4 last year in 10 games, averaging 4 yards a carry. So he can do some things that I think that Trask and Mills can't do.
Right. Good question from Kyle here. $5 super chat. We really appreciate that from Kyle. He says, in my favorite mocks, a top 4 cornerback falls to us at 32. Then combined a combination of interior offensive line or edge, Landon Dickerson or Miners in round 2, or Ben Cleveland in round 3, Peyton Turner in round 2, or Cam Sample and Ellerson Smith in round 3. Thoughts? I think Kyle sounds like he reads our stuff, which I really appreciate because we like a lot of these
names
guys.
There. Yeah,
this is great. My quick thoughts, Kyle. I try to get in my mind a scenario where a top 4 cornerback falls to the Bucs. I don't think it's going to happen. I would love to take cornerback just because they don't have a lot of needs. I think it's one of the positions that you should be deepest at. Definitely question marks with Jamel Dean and Sean Murphy Bunting. I would love to see him take a cornerback at some point. If Greg Newsome, as Bill Byer says here, hell yeah, if Greg Newsome gets to 32. I agree. Hell yeah, if he gets to 32. I mean, but I know I've thrown that option out there. We even put it in a mock. You and I did a couple weeks ago, Scott.
Right.
I look at the board more and more, and I just don't think he gets there. I mean, I know it's crazy, 6 starts this past year, but that's how we're drafting this year. That's the game of the game. Some of these guys are going to get drafted ahead of him, didn't even play this past year. So I think teams are going to take it at that position. They're going to see the amount of plays he made on the balls, not necessarily a lot of interceptions, but he made a lot of plays on the ball.
He's got
and they're
length,
going to take him
out. Speed,
he's a good kid. He works hard. He loves the games. Coaches will rave about him. So I don't think Newsome will get to 32. I know people are asking about Farley. I see the questions. I saw the questions earlier about Caleb Farley. All I know is he went back for his medical rechecks, and all the reports have been that things were great. Now, obviously, that's probably coming from his camp. They want people to think that way. Right. I have no idea. I don't know what teams will be, if there'll be clarity on him or not. I still think he doesn't get to 32. And if he gets to 32, then did every other team have a concern? You know, a lot of teams need corners in the 20 to 32 range.
Then it gets a little scary, right? Because if he gets to 32 and you're Jason Licht, you're looking over at your scouts going, do we have the right medicals in this guy? Do we do enough research? Why are there 31 other teams that have passed on this guy? And are we the guy that's going to be the chump and take him because there's something we don't know? Or are we going to get a steal in the draft because a player that probably has top 12 caliber ability falls that far? But I think, again, even with the medical concerns, John, what that means is instead of being a top 12 player, he's probably a top 20 player. But I don't think he gets out of that 25 range.
Right. Now, if he does fall, and the medicals aren't a concern for the Bucs, I can't speak to the medicals. I can't tell you if it's a good idea or not from that perspective. I mean, from on the field, Caleb Farley is a good football player. I don't think he's ever been quite like, he's going to go top 5 or 10, but he could. He has crazy talent. He's very fast. He definitely makes plays on the football. Lots of interceptions during his college career. He makes legitimate plays on the football too. We're not talking about Gerard Holliman, if people remember from about 5-6 years ago, type interceptions. He makes plays on the ball. Does he need to improve things technically? Yes. He did not spend a ton of time in press, but he has really good press man traits. He actually played a lot of off and zone coverage. I think that'd be really attractive to Bulls. He has the length, the athleticism, the ball skills that the Bucs are looking for. I absolutely think he checks all the boxes the Bucs want at the position if he gets there and if the other stuff isn't a concern. I tend to think one of the two will happen. Either the other stuff will be a concern and they'd pass, or he doesn't get there because the other stuff's not that big of a concern. That's how I see it. Ideally, though, he'd be a great pick at 32. I don't think there's any question.
No doubt about it. Yeah. So we've got.
And then I love the interior O-line options, by the way, there too, Scott, with Quinn Miners and Landon Dickerson. And then Peyton Turner. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, the thing with Peyton Turner,
it might need in round 2, and maybe a Quinn Miners in round 3. Scott, you think Quinn Miners in round 3 could be a possibility?
I think it'd be round 3. I don't think it'd be round 2 based upon some information that I've gotten. But sure. But I tell you what, I wouldn't rule out Landon Dickerson at number 32. I remember we had him in our latest mock at the first round. Not sure if he'll make the repeat for the final, but he very well could. I
asked Lance Zierlein straight up the other day, Scott. Lance, this was on Twitter. Everybody can see this. It's on Twitter. I said, what about he said he doesn't think Landon Dickerson's going to go first round. I said, what about Landon Dickerson at 32? Lance is my boy. We're good friends. We chat a lot. He said, no. Okay. That he said. So I said, all right, we'll see, man. I'm coming back to this tweet, though, if they take him at 32.
Yeah. William Butler with the super chat. We appreciate these Monday super chats very much, Bucs fans, asks, why not Rondale Moore at 32? So the interesting thing, John, is I think there's a couple of receivers that if the Buccaneers were so inclined to take one at 32, or if they trade back maybe a few spots later. But the problem is some of these guys, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore, they're just small, and they're really only slot receivers at the NFL because of their lack of size and physicality. And as we know, in Bruce Arians' offense, you got to be big and physical to play in the slot, a la Larry Fitzgerald, a la Chris Godwin. That's the type of players that they like in the slot because of the ability to block and do things, whether it be right there at the point of attack or as a kind of a move H-back, going across the formation, getting up in the hole as a lead blocker. Those are the things that Chris Godwin does. And that's why you don't see Scotty Miller in the slot a whole bunch, because he doesn't have the size to do that. So I think Rondale Moore and Elijah Moore from Ole Miss, those are two guys that are good players, but not a good fit in Tampa.
It would also be the first time the Bucs have taken a wide receiver this size, especially early in the draft. We know they took Scotty later, who's smaller.
Yeah.
5'9". Scotty 5'9".
Scotty's about 5'10". I mean,
5'10". Okay.
You can eyeball him. Well, you won't be eyeballing because you'll be looking down at him, but you'll check him out in person on Wednesday when you get to meet him. But 5'9", 5'10".
Okay, but, so Rondale Moore's 5'7", Scott. 5'7". And I know he's thick, and I know he's a great athlete, but I'm just saying at the end of the day, the Bucs they don't take receivers that small, and they don't take people with Rondale Moore's skill set. Now, could they change things? Could they say, we just want a yak guy. We want a quick hitter guy who gets yards after the catch. They could change things. Absolutely. I wouldn't even be against that. I think that'd be sweet in this offense. Now, it would take something different, right? Rondale Moore would have to play outside some. Bucs do inside-outside stuff with their guys. Almost everybody plays both, or you're just an outside guy. They don't have many just inside guys. And so it would be a deviation. It would be a totally different type of player. The Bucs have not brought in anybody, to my knowledge, at wide receiver in Jason Light's time that they've said, you're going to be our yak guy. Like, that's not really how the offense has worked at any point. They haven't really prioritized those type of players. Doesn't mean that guys can't do it after the catch. They just haven't. That's Rondale Moore's best trait, is getting the ball in his hands.
Right. I believe Jason Licht has drafted 7 wide receivers and only 2 before day 3. And those 2 would be Chris Godwin in 2017 in the 3rd round and Mike Evans, 1st round pick, 7th overall in 2014. Every other receiver has been day 3, whether it's been Tyler Johnson last year in the 5th round, whether it's been Justin Watson in the 5th round in 2018, I believe. Scotty Miller in 2019, Robert Haran, 6th round in 2014, and Kalen Clay, he was more of a punt return guy. I think that was in 2015. So, but all of those guys, with the exception of Justin Watson and Tyler Johnson, are small. But all those guys are on day 3, and I think they like bigger receivers. So we'll talk receivers a little bit more in a couple of days, but Terrence Marshall from LSU. And I think if they're going to go for a smaller guy, I think Kadarius Toney might be an option. And I know there's a question, and John, you've written about that before. And I want to say there was, Pat Kerwin wonders if the Bucs should grab more picks. Actually, that wasn't it. I thought there was another one. Oh, here it is.
In 2022. That's a good point. We'll come back to that one. But go ahead with fucking
but he thought that Kadarius Toney would be a good fit for the Bucs, and but I could see that because I've heard that there are some similarities between Antonio Brown and Kadarius Toney. Unfortunately, kind of on and off the field, there's some off the field issues a little bit that I think might have Toney, not have the highest stock that he could. I think some of those incidents were a little, they didn't really involve bad character, but more just questionable character. And so I think that might give the Buccaneers some pause. But at the same time, though, the guy's an electric player. And I really believe they've kind of been scouting Florida hard. And whether it's been taking a look at Trask, and when you look at Trask, then you look at a guy like Kadarius Toney, you look at a guy like Trevon Grimes, who could be, an option at the wide receiver on day 3 as well.
Yeah. Kadarius Toney would be another one that's a deviation, right? I mean, again, best thing he does is get the ball in his hands. He's not really a polished route runner. That's where the
Kenny Bell. There's another
Kenny
one.
Bell.
Kenny Bell.
Yeah, that's right. Kadarius Toney, where I struggle with him and AB, I know there's some size similarities maybe, and they can both do a little bit after the catch, but I mean, Toney is just not very technically sound yet. He needs a lot of polish and refinement. Last year was really his first year playing wide receiver for like a full season of getting snaps and playing wide receiver. Where AB, that was his, that's where he hung his hat on. He was the most polished receiver in the NFL for the majority of his career, still up there in that regard. And that's what allowed him to be the best receiver in the NFL. And so that's where, Toney would be like the rawest form maybe in some ways, and also faster. And so there's intrigue. All those types of guys, again, we're just saying it'd be a deviation from their norm. Maybe this is the year to do that. Maybe this is the year things get wild. But when we have to guess at what the team is doing, we tend to stay within the parameters of, okay, the Bucs have drafted 6'1" receivers between 205 and 210. They love speed. They love leaping ability. We think we might have found a broad jump between 10.3 and 10.7 seems to be their sweet spot for almost everybody that's done it. So we try to build off that now that Light's been general manager as long as he has. We try to build off that and then deviate from that only kind of in extreme situations. So it could happen. We're not closing the door on it. We don't know they dislike Rondale Moore or Kadarius Toney. We just aren't going to bet on it probably.
Well, and John, speaking of building, right, you can build your own empire when it comes to sports. And you can do that kind of like in the stock market. It's really cool. It's Monday, and that means that Symbol is the sponsor of the Bucs Monday Mailbag. And Symbol is also the stock market for sports that allows you to trade sports teams like stocks and earn cash payouts when your teams win. Symbol's blended sports and the stock market to offer you a new way to invest in and profit off your favorite teams. Use your sports knowledge to buy low, sell high, and earn cash payouts when your team wins. Join the over 2,500 early adopters, including myself. I got some stake in this too, that have invested in their favorite teams. The stock market for sports, just a tap away. Create a free account in seconds. Start profiting from your sports knowledge. And you can do that by going to www.symbol.app/Pewter Report. When you do that and sign up using that promo code, you're going to get a $10 deposit bonus when you sign up. So the SimBucks franchise this week is $43. So it's a cool website. Check it out. And it's a great way it's a new little twist to fantasy sports, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's really cool stuff and everybody should check it out. Capo says he's seen a mock draft that the Bucs drafted wide receiver Elijah Moore. Again, definitely possible. I think Moore, if you were going to ask me the most likely out of Kadarius Toney, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore, and let's say Amari Rodgers from Clemson. I think the most likely is Elijah Moore because he makes plays vertically. And I think he's the one that's polished enough that he could win outside right now. Rondale Moore, too many injuries last couple of years. We don't know, we don't want to take that guy in the first round. I don't think you don't want to take that kind of a risk. Kadarius Toney still just so raw at the position. I like Amari Rodgers, definitely can win vertically too. Probably wouldn't be at 32, but at 64, maybe possibility for sure. He's got good size as well. He can make plays after the catch. I definitely like Amari Rodgers, but at 32, I think Elijah Moore would be the most likely one out of if they're going to go away from their norm at wide receiver. He'd be the most likely guy.
Yeah, he's an exciting guy, and although you kind of wonder, right? I mean, like how much does size make a difference? How much does size matter? But he's 5'9", right, and that's in the Scotty Miller range. Rondale Moore is 5'7", right, and you look even at the arms. You've got 30-inch arms on Elijah Moore and 28-inch arms on Rondale Moore. And you've got 9.5-inch hands on Elijah Moore, and Rondale Moore 8 3/4. And really what that means is just catch radius, John. And I think that's the detriment to being a small wide receiver. We saw that in the first Kansas City game when Tom Brady was rushed and had that interception. The ball was a bit underthrown for Scotty Miller. you just can't go up and get the ball and compete for some of those contested catches. So you got to be able to outrun guys. And if the throw isn't there on time, you're not going to win those jump balls and make those contested catches because you have such a small catch radius. And 5'9", that's one thing. 5'7",
and 28-inch
arms. I mean, you better be a pinpoint passer. And I think that's why Rondale Moore is so pitch and hold as a slot receiver, because you have to get the ball to him quickly, or he's got to really beat you vertically and create separation down the field, because there just isn't there's no room for error. There's no margin of error on the passes. They've got to be pinpoint, and the shorter the distance the ball has to travel, the more accurate it's going to be. So I think that's why Rondale Moore is a bit limited going forward into the NFL, because unless it's on smoke routes, wide receiver screens, those little quick little hitch passes in the slot, it's going to be difficult to get him the ball, especially when you've got 6-foot corners with long arms.
Yeah, no, it's he has a sub 70 wingspan. Like that is bonkers. You just don't see that for a top guy. I mean, and Tutu Atwell, I think, is in that range as well. 5'8", 155 for Tutu Atwell, though. I mean, that guy literally fits in your pocket.
You're talking about Darren Sproles, and the thing with Sproles is he was a running back, right? Who could also catch the ball.
Yeah.
You're
not getting contact right off the line of scrimmage as a running back.
And he was a kick returner and a punt returner, and brought a lot of versatility to the game. And I would not draft a 5'7" wide receiver, even one that is
not a 32.
Yeah, no way.
And not with injury here concerns. That's the other thing, Scott.
Yeah.
He barely played. So too much risk for me. But we've addressed some of those guys, and we've talked about the bigger receivers too in earlier podcasts, and we'll talk about them as well as we go through. We were actually just talking about Bucs Best Bets at wide receiver, so we'll eventually hash all of that out for sure. 3X Deep says, when does the NFL minicamp start? Slated to start in June, right?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is Bruce Arians was out there at the Arians family golf tournament today and was asked about the Buccaneers players
having an off season. That could be an adventure getting there, I think, with the way this thing has unfolded over the past few months. So,
and the thing too, John, is Bruce Arians was out there at the Arians family golf tournament today, and was asked about his feelings on the players, volunteering to skip the voluntary minicamp, or the off-season program. He's like, I'm all for it, because it's all going to be done virtually anyways in the film room, because you can't do on the field stuff right now. So he doesn't care if the players are there in person or if they are attending virtually, which they're going to. And why would he want to have any of those players there? Because there's no quarterback to throw him the ball.
Right. Absolutely. You know what I'm gung-ho about, Scott? These Playbook Products mugs. That's what I care about right here. I mean, look at this. Scotty Miller's touchdown, or this one's Scotty Miller's touchdown before the end of the half against the Packers in the NFC Championship game. You've got the play on there. You've got the words down and distance, the score, everything. You've got all the details beautifully made. It's wonderful. They've got the coasters. I mean, they are producing some really good stuff over at playbookproducts.com. If you're a Bucs fan, you can find great gifts, right? Great gifts.
Yes.
I mean, Mother's Day, Father's Day coming up. I mean, pick some of this stuff up. It's great stuff over at Playbook Products. You can get kinds of stuff they have over at their website. So check out playbookproducts.com for sure. And if you're a fan of another team, Lightning or the Rays or something like that, I mean, any of these other teams, they have tons of different teams, college teams, Florida State. Go find the mug and find the right fit for you in terms of a Playbook Products item, because they are producing some awesome stuff. Couldn't be happier with mine. Couldn't be happier with my coasters. And I know a lot of other people that have picked some of their stuff up. We had somebody message us the other day. Yeah, they were like, I try to buy all this stuff from your sponsors. I bought Playbook Product stuff. I love it. They were raving about it. One of our longtime listeners. So we were excited to hear that, obviously. And it's going to be a fun. We've got a little Playbook Product surprises coming up too on the show over the next few weeks. So we're going to be excited about that as well. But head over there, pick up some Bucs stuff, get yourself ready for the draft and ready for next season, really, even already.
Right.
In style for sure.
John,
so
we're going to be talking running backs tomorrow. We got our running back preview coming up, plus our running back Bucs Best Bets on the website tomorrow. So be sure to check that out. And Wednesday, if you missed the top of the show, we have a special announcement. Scotty Miller is going to be joining us at the Mill. It's going to be a live broadcast, 7 to 8 p.m. So you want to be sure to check out that time change. It's going to be a little bit different. But Scotty Miller, Bucs wide receiver, is going to be joining us live for some pretty cool conversation Wednesday night, 7 to 8 p.m. So check out that special time on Wednesday. We'll be
got
back
some great
p.m.
questions queued up for Scotty, man. I've been thinking through some great questions for him, so I'm excited about that. Tomorrow will be you and Mark on the pod, I believe. So we'll have covered throughout the week, and Thursday more draft talk. We keep talking about position groups. We got to cover those offensive linemen and talk about them because that's going to be the position group. Almost any round, I could see the Bucs going offensive line. So that'll be the one that we need to probably go the deepest on in order to inform people the most. So fun stuff coming up as always. We appreciate y'all tuning in and listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.